Hey,
Hey there, welcome to the Nonsensus. My name is Zachary Winchester,
and my name is Chris Orozco.
and the world is burning down. I close my eyes, and that's "Sunny Came Home." I've been singing that in my head for the last couple of days. But yeah, so
Wonderfully, I might add.
things in the world are intense and intensifying, and um, the some of the imagery and events and how the events are being talked about by the media in Kenosha, Wisconsin are uncannily like what my nightmares have been.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I seem to be getting a lot of yeah from those that I respect intellectually and who I think have good wishes for the world. This looks like exactly what we feared.
Yeah, because it's like once you got armed militias getting involved, that is kind of a point of no return. But then once those armed militias start killing people, that's another point of no return. Because it's like you had the Chaz Chop thing, and it was like, well, they killed people. And then it's like, now you got these militias, and now they're killing people. And so we've got casualties on both sides. And anytime you got people literally dying, that creates the revenge impetus. That creates the like, we really have to get these people under control impetus. And that just gets more and more heated as the conflict grows.
Yeah.
Like, you killed one of ours, we'll kill three of yours. And the cops don't seem super interested in stopping this from happening.
Yeah, the cops don't seem interested in a de-escalation. I mean, there are several other sides that are against the cops that aren't always a coalition together because of huge disagreements, like whether or not we can be conversational with police or the government. Like that's a huge divide that I find myself unable to feel like I'm fully on board or on the side of some parties because yeah, I am distinctly the need to de-escalate seems like the most paramount thing now, because getting past that point that we're talking about, that the kid in the street with the assault rifle really looked like. Sometimes people correct me. I didn't use the word assault rifle correctly. Anyway, with the rifle, that more moments like that will take us to a place that it would be very difficult to get back from, and getting out of that zone will become all of our energy. And there because I mean, one example is like Israel Palestine. Like there are several examples where a butter battle book of history, a real life butter battle book scenario, seemed impossible to de-escalate because that reverberating revenge need to feel closure through retribution on both sides, that compounds itself, and it's so dangerous, and we're not there yet, but we're fucking bloody close.
Especially the more personal it becomes. You know, like this, like these two people that got killed in Kenosha. I mean, granted, one of them, from what I understand, is like a convicted pedophile. But at the same time, that guy's going to have friends. And his friends are going to be the ones most directly impacted by this. And they're going to be the ones that are going to go out and want to get revenge. And then whoever they get revenge on, it's the people closest to them that are going to want to do this back. And it's like, it's tough to even say that like parts of our country might devolve into war zones, because they already have. Like, we have war zones in America right now. People with guns walking around on the street, either taking parts of cities and keeping them and using guns to keep them, or using guns to prevent people from doing that. We're officially having armed standoffs where people are dying in America on the streets. Like, the war is already here. The question is, how big does it get? And that is a conversation that part of me wants to say is bigger than us right now.
Yes.
But part of me won't let me fully believe that. I won't allow myself to act as if that's true.
And that's kind of a point of no return for as individuals. Like, I mean, this conversation is a point of no return. Like, if I go down the path of, well, I think that we may be able to say helpful things if we are listened to.
Mm-hmm.
And to feel that knee-jerk responsibility, something is popping off. I need to educate myself as much of the facts of what happened, not just the facts, but the sentimentality behind both sides or all sides, and then try to, as soon as possible, go live and talk about it and assume this tone that I don't like being in this tone. This level of seriousness is, I reserve this for serious shit. And the observation that it is unfolding in like stark similarity to my fears, that says, and that it has continued to, that says to me that we must,
Mm-hmm.
So here's one potentially helpful thought observation that I had. Just like, try this out. So there was a New York Times, two headlines that came out shortly after each other. One of which shows a picture of Jacob Blake and says Jacob Blake had a knife in his car when he was shot by police, DOJ says. And then after the Kyle Rittenhouse moment happened, suspected teen gunman Kyle Rittenhouse spotted cleaning Kenosha graffiti before shooting. And then there's a picture of him cleaning graffiti. Like that stark difference. I don't know if this is going to be possible, but like that is a problem. Like a media source existing at a level where there are thousands who see it as the news, being able to be that divisive, that obvious, like that is not fucking journalism. And the right wing and the left wing and whether you are of the oppressed or the oppressors, though people don't usually perceive themselves to be oppressors, you know what I'm talking about? Like that fucks all of us. That is so fucking corrupt. That is that and it seems intentional. It
does seem intentional. And that's what's really weird, is because like I knew this was going to happen in 2016. As soon as Trump announced his presidency and like the culture shifted kind of overnight, that's when I knew that we were headed here.
Yeah.
And that's when I knew that if I didn't step in and do everything I possibly could to de-escalate, that we would get here and that it would get worse. And so now I'm kind of left with this feeling of like, okay, I didn't do enough. Like I have the ear of, 4,500 people on Facebook, and I have the ear of another 4,500 people on Instagram, but that's not nearly enough. And if this de-escalation is going to happen, it's going to be because somebody is the champion of it. Somebody has to be that. And I'm very serious about taking that burden and that responsibility on myself. And so I've been changing my outlook. I've been changing a lot of things to get myself into the frame of mind where I can be that guy. Because it's either it's if it's not me, it's I don't know who the fuck's gonna do it.
I know of some voices, they also don't have massive platforms right now. They have more numbers than we do currently, but not such a massive gap to the point where I can keep giving myself this excuse that I don't need to go down that path. I don't need to go into that mode now because I'll be just significantly ineffective because I don't have a lot of viewership. I can't make that excuse anymore. And someone said, I think it was Zuby. He said, we can't bear all of this burden. Like you can't, that there's so many of my friends, he says that like of my like intellectual friends who, you know, have well intentions for the world and are scared of the way it's going. Like they tell me I'm pretty much relying on you to say all the words publicly because you have a platform, because you have more patience than me, because I say the same words to myself. But he said, and this really made me feel like not that, you know, the shame and the guilt tends to happen first, but then there's like a resolute, like, okay, I need to act in accordance with what my feelings are telling me. And he says, like, you cannot put all that burden on us, on those of us who are talking, you know? So we need to share the load.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know, like this might be like some kind of narcissistic savior complex, but I think because of the specific like shadow integration framework and philosophy and curriculum I've been coming up with for the last 10 years of my life, I think I'm uniquely equipped to be the guy to lead the de-escalation psychological integrationist movement. I think I am that guy. I think I've been prepping to be that guy for a long time. And now it's just kind of like, it's time to really do it. And honestly, like the only thing holding me back is just like I get a little bit of hate now, but it's nothing like it's gonna be.
Oh yeah.
If I really step into that.
Oh yeah. You must develop more so than you already have, not just a thick skin, but I actually think that sometimes from the hateful, reactionary, disgusting comments that happen on YouTube and just, you know, that happen on the internet, sometimes there's a morsel in that just like when you and I, you know, say, can you pointed out the perspective of those suburban couple that came out with guns when their neighborhood had a lot of people protesting in it, and you were like, okay, I'm not saying that I'm not siding with them at all, but intellectually I can grasp the perspective of there's been buildings on fire, there's people gathering in this specific way that's been happening, and to go out on the lawn with guns to be like, hey, not this house, like isn't impossible to intellectualize. Nothing about their rightness. But you're saying that could totally inflame somebody, and that inflammation is understandable too, because it's like you're like, there's some people right now who their minds are so in the duality, in the separation, in the tribalism, that even a communication that shows neutrality can come off as enemy. And so how do we, there's some ways where we can navigate around that and still be on the mission to instill and foster the integrative framework to, you know, going forward, because I agree with you very much that I don't know how we're going to avoid total fucking war without the integrative framework, without at least some sense of a we that includes everyone.
Yeah, because it's interesting, like up until this point, it's been pretty easy to say, like, okay, you got like, let's hypothetically say the two poles of this thing as like Antifa and Proud Boys. Let's put those as the poles of the two sides instigating violence against each other, and you can attribute whatever wrong or right.
There might be a little there's a more extreme example that you give on the right, I think, than Proud Boys, but I get what you're saying.
But the Proud Boys are the ones that actually show up and fight.
Yeah.
So like all the other ones, they don't show up and fight really.
Yeah.
Not that I can tell. They're probably mixed into the group. But as far as I know, it's like Antifa is the umbrella name for if you're going to fight and you're on the left, you're probably affiliated with Antifa on some level. And if you're going on the right and you're going to fight, you're probably affiliated with the Proud Boys on some level. So that's probably taking some leaps, but I think for the sake of argument, that's where we're at. I think it's safe to say that those are the two poles, and it used to be to the point where it was like, okay, you've got wackos to the left and wackos to the right, and they're going to beat each other up in the street, and the rest of us are going to think they're stupid. Fine. But now they're killing people. And you can't just say, oh, that's not really my problem anymore. Because either you've got a right-wing militia marching down your street, or you've got a left-wing group burning down your storefront. And so like now you're involved whether you wanted to be in or not. And so anybody who wasn't involved can now very easily become involved. And that can become a very big problem. And so I think we have to speak to the needs and the values of both. And I think it's finally time to have, like, the thing I'm thinking about doing is actually having facilitated conversations of trying to find middle ground between people on the left and people on the right.
Yes. Over chess, I believe. Over games. I have this idea of getting people together to play chess or Scrabble or something. But I mean, chess is ideal because of how great of a metaphor it is. But to get someone from the left and a right wing representative that the people agree are like these both of these two, like they are going to talk my values well, like, and to have them play a turn-based game where when the other one is deciding their turn, the other is talking. And it goes back and forth like that.
But isn't there an inherent sense of competition there that might get in the way?
Well, that's the thing. That's the idea is that the game is the competition. The conversation is just soundtrack.
You're like directing the competitive.
Yeah, because really what if the left wing talking head just destroys, like, you know, Ben Shapiro, but Ben Shapiro is able to win the chess match, or the other way around, you know?
Huh. That's interesting.
That I think that will allow for, that would foster the, you know, the playful.
I don't know. If it were me, I'd focus too much on wanting to win. Yeah. I'm very competitive.
Yeah. Well, maybe they're both taking turns, you know, drawing a picture, and it's like you do that. But I definitely think that now is time to get active about this, and you know, that doesn't mean that every time that we do a Nonsensus, or that, you know, that every time that I'm doing any kind of live speaking or podcast, that we always got to address the most serious shit going on. But right now, like, this is a moment of like, yeah, if this does not de-escalate, we will go. So have you heard it said lately? I think Brett Weinstein and Sam Harris has said, you know, with everything that's terribly corrupt and wrong in a lot of police departments in the United States, giving the monopoly on violence to the state may have been the greatest thing we've ever done since, like, not cooking our food where we shit. Like,
I haven't heard that.
Well, I would say that that's a conversation that I would want to have more. Like, that's a dialectic that I would like to have more, because I'm not certain about this hypothetical of like how we would exist without a police force, without the monopoly of violence being in the hands of, but specifically being in the hands of this thing that is not the military. So like the monopoly on violence being in the hands of the military, and there being martial law, like I do believe we don't want to go there. We don't want it. And that's so the buffer, far worse. because they are. I mean, despite how terrible American police perform at their job, it can be said that it is not their job to show up and eliminate. However, like the military, that's what their training is to
Exactly.
is to
It's
win.
like they say, if the only tool you have is a hammer, then everything's a nail.
Yeah.
Like that's how it is if you get martial law.
Yeah. So anyway. Oh yeah, so the monopoly on violence thing. Having that and having an adversarial relationship with that is fucking no bueno. I don't know how it could go well.
I don't know where else you could have the violence, honestly. Like look at what we have now. This is so much worse. I mean, well, it's only worse for some people. For other people, this is just how they normally live.
If there are situations like Kyle Rittenhouse, who do you want to be the one who puts him down when he's not giving himself over? Like, I want it to be the police.
But when the cops just tell him to leave, and he walks up and he says, "I killed people," and they're like, "Okay."
That's why I understand the those who like even I completely. I mean, I not only intellectually like understand the left wing, or you want to call it the perspective of the protesters, the perspective of Black Lives Matter. Like, I not only intellectualize that perspective, I emotionally vibe with it way more than I do the American conservative perspective. Now, I wouldn't call myself a liberal or leftist, and because I'm not committed to that, remaining my perception, and I can, but like I understand more now what a concerned conservative American sees when they see this shit. So the thing that I would like to get across to somebody, I almost assume that there's none of those listening right now, but on the conservative perspective of if there is someone trying to defend him, I would like to give this perception of what I see. That is a failing of society and his parents, that kid needs to go to prison. Like, his parents failed him so much by fostering a consciousness that like has access to this gun and has the sort of constitution where them seeing what they've been seeing in the news had them take a gun to a place thinking that they were actually being sincerely, legitimately a vigilante that was needed. Like, I do think that he thought that. Mm-hmm. I think that there are others who are waiting with guns who don't even think that. They just want to kill. Now, I do think that just like a lot of psycho police officers who use their job as kind of a vehicle to get them to somewhere where they can kill somebody lawfully. He did want violence. He did want violence, but he thought for some reason that he was this vigilante, that it was upon him, and that is a failing of his parents.
I think that's interesting because one of my really good friends, his family owns this 5-star luxury upscale hotel right on the pier in Santa Monica. And there was demonstrations and riots basically right in front of this hotel. And there was also this thing of like, we can just, like, there was this meme going around or whatever, like, we can just seize the hotels. Like, we can just take the hotels and they can't stop us. And then I was like, so I called my friend. I was like, yo, if you need people to defend your hotel, like, let me know and I'll be there. And it sucks because I would have been fighting people I philosophically and existentially agree with. But I also believe in like life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And if they want to take away my friend's ability to take care of himself and his family going forward, and he's from a Muslim family. He's not even a white dude. Then it's like, no. And so I kind of get it.
Yeah. No, I absolutely understand why people are observing the situation with police and policing in America as so fucked to death that there just is no incrementally, conversationally getting it to a healthy place. And one of the slogans and marching orders that I hear often is like they exist to be this force of violence and oppression and mass incarceration. It is not. It is the nature of the whole concept of policing and its origins from slavery.
But that's only American policing. Policing has been around is way longer than that.
True.
Such a cop-out argument, I think.
I know it's like, and so I understand where it's coming from because of the evidence that people see, but also from looking at statistics dispassionately as I'm capable of.
Well, they're mostly bullshit anyway.
The media is showing us so much more of when it goes terribly wrong.
Of when what goes terribly wrong?
Policing.
Oh yeah, sure.
Police arriving on the scene of a situation.
I mean, I grew up in Orange County. It's fairly brown dude. I have Mexican last name. I have black hair and brown eyes. Some people say I look like a white guy. Some people don't. I think it depends on how you look at me. But I used to get hassled by cops all the time. Every single time I got pulled over, I knew I was getting searched. I knew they were calling for backup. They generally weren't nice to me. And I just knew that that's how cops were. And so, like, this has been a problem for a long time. And I think and so I agree with Martin Luther King in that if you want it solved, if you want the problem solved, you have to do it by nonviolent means. But for the people who are actively being pushed down and oppressed and silenced and straight up bullied and killed, if they're going to burn shit, it's like, what do you want me to do?
It's like, it's the result. It's like you see somebody about to touch a toaster and it's like, that's going to burn your fingers, whether or not you believe it's going to burn your fingers. It's like, but that is where
so different, because now you have a group of white people going out there, not really even fully understanding the issues, but throwing bricks because that's what edgy white people do. That's a white punk rock anarchist move.
That video of shortly after George Floyd, where they're breaking all the windows, and it's like, that is such a stark painting of that picture. Like there's a black woman on a megaphone, like, stop. Do you know what this is going to do? And it's just like all white dudes. At that shit makes me want somebody with a monopoly on violence to show up and stop it. Like
I want to go stop it. I will take up the violence and stop it if, like, luckily it's not happening in LA anymore, but like,
yeah. I personally won't. I have decided for myself and the point that I'm at in my life and what I wish to do with my career in service to the world, that I am physically avoiding violence in this time. I'm surviving this time. And even though there are things where a risk assessment could be like, okay, it's okay for you to put your body here for this moment. After the moment with the Kyle Rittenhouse, like that, I will not go near that. I will do everything. I will do. No, I'm not going to say I will do everything, because I don't know. I'd like to think that we're all trying our best, but I will do what I can to do this work of de-escalating, and I will not go near this at the level of insanity and risk that it is at.
And what about when it comes to you?
Yeah, that is a question. That is a question and as of now, physical escape if possible. I'm having conversations about whether or not I should reluctantly own a firearm and learn how to use it. But no, I will not go to where bullets are flying. I will go to where angry people are that will be difficult to level with. I will not go where bullets are flying.
Yeah. Okay. You add bullets to the mix, and it's just becomes stupid to be anywhere near that.
Yeah.
That
And I encourage everyone that I care about to have the same hard rule. I will not go where there is gunfire.
But the interesting thing about that is that just like gives you immediate victory to whoever brings a gun.
Yeah, man. Which is supposed to be the purpose of the police having the monopoly on violence, but they have such corrupt elements, and an argument can be made that they're inherently corrupt. Now, I live in Detroit. I observe our police department to be a very particular situation, a very particular group of people that obviously has elements of the problems that we're seeing all over the country. But do I think that it is beyond correction? At this moment, no. I do not think that I think that I've just heard from so many people. I've heard largely from elderly Black people in Detroit, them saying, I want there to be more police. I want them to be more outfitted to be able to show up as the monopoly on violence, to be able, because what they don't want is another Detroit riot. And I think that Detroit has a lot of a culture and mechanisms within it to avoid that. Like the whole, the from what I see, like a lot, aside from like young people who are, very, admittedly spicy and think that they want a revolution. Like I hear from a lot of the older people here. And I gotta say, particularly older Black people that I have spoken to about this in police and I'll overhear conversations. And it seems to be like, I wish our police were more suited to be able to handle things in a peaceful way, And now with the protests being like the police were just incredibly violent towards those demonstrating last Saturday, and the footage is gnarly, and it's just and it shows. It's like, man, whenever this moment happens where there's a line of police and then there's a crowd of protesters, the police suck so much at not escalating it to the worst place. But also,
especially because you have to think about like the ethos that they live in. Like I have a decent amount of right-wing friends, and my emotions actually lean me more conservative. My emotions don't push me left. Because I'm an individualist. I believe in like I don't care what we have to do, but my individual liberty and the individual liberties of those in my collective will not be infringed upon. Like that's where my emotions lie. Is like nobody gets to tell me what to do or how to live or what to think or anything like that. And because I think once that power is enabled, it's worse than any other problem that we could come up against. And so to me, that's where it stops. And because of that, I have friends that think that way, and like I listen to media and all those sorts of things. And you think about it, and I have friends that are in the military and stuff like that. And the way that they think about these things is so different. It's so different.
Yeah.
They're constantly being told, because first of all, you've got the super biased media that they're probably only consuming their own like right-wing, like pro-cop media, which if you can spin any of these stories any ways that you want. It's pretty insane. Like any protest, you can make it look like this person started it or this person started it. And so they're always reading media that is saying that these people are burning things for no good reason. They don't actually mean anything that they're saying. and they're just out there looking for violence, which there are plenty of people doing that. And so it's easy to run a narrative off that because it exists.
It'll keep being fueled by reality stuff too.
Exactly. And so you got these cops going in here, and they're thinking that what you have is a bunch of destructive, angry goofballs that just want to destroy your country.
Yeah, they're not trained to see a crowd of individuals. It's a crowd. So I have to step away for 30 seconds to use the bathroom, but I wanted to get into these questions before we end. And this one's perfect for you to monologue for 30 seconds while Lee asks, what do you believe will de-escalate the situation of violence in the minds of 2020?
I'd like to think it's practicality. I would really like to think it's practicality. Because this really is the most practical, like de-escalation is the most practical thing. I don't necessarily count on people to, because it's like, what I've noticed is if you try and get people to think with their empathy, it's not going to work, because you're trying to get them to empathize with people that they've been trained to hate, essentially, and their communities hate. And that any sympathy for these people within their communities will be met with like scorn and rejection, all these sorts of things. So trying to get people to empathize with the other side isn't going to do it. And trying to get people to moralistically understand why what they're doing is wrong isn't really going to work, because they've been fed propaganda that tells them that they're right and everyone else is wrong. And the amount of psychological work that it would take in order to see the open up somebody's version of morality and all that sort of stuff, that's a pretty tall order. But as things speed up, or as things escalate, and you can start to like really paint the picture of just how bad stuff can get, because 4 years ago it was just like, oh, everybody who voted for Trump must be a racist, and it's like, that's what started this. And it was just this teeny tiny little thing. And on a practical level, that created this divide. And that divide is the thing that is leading us to kill each other in the streets. And so if you want to see less death in the streets, the most practical thing to do is to de-escalate. And the more buildings burn in your city, the more militias show up and kill people in your city, the more that stuff starts to become real, the more the practical aspects of this is going to start to become real as well.
Yeah.
And so my intent is to try and get people aligned with the practical and strategic elements of it, because the empathetic and moralistic stuff is never going to work. If that would have worked, that would have worked already, but it's not. It's just very much like, hey, do you want to see your family dead in the street? You want your house burned while you're in it? Like, is that what you want? Because if you want that, then great. But if you don't want that, then maybe we should de-escalate, and to try and make that real for people.
And I think a way to de-escalate, you may have been just finishing saying this when I came back, but that energy exists. The energy that put Kyle Rittenhouse in the streets with that weapon, the energy that those who are doing the violent, destructive rioting are unleashing upon buildings, and the potential energy that leads to police smashing skulls and walking up to. I saw one where it was like a small kid and they're casually macing as he walks by, like, fucking child. Like the moments when they pull down someone's mask to spray into their face, like that potential energy exists in this sociopathic, psychotic person who has found themselves in the perfect job employment position as it exists today for them to be able to carry out these heinous acts with impunity. Mm-hmm. Like all of that potential energy exists. Where can we have these conversations where the things we need to talk about can be talked about with words?
You have to create it.
Yeah.
You have to create it. And you have to create it knowing that you're going to be hated for it. So it's not just doing it. it's doing it knowing that you're going to be hated for it, and people might threaten your life.
That is the part that makes me hesitant, for sure. That's the, you mentioned the Messiah complex earlier. There is this concept that I see as getting yourself Christed.
It's a thing that happens.
Yeah, you went too far down the the Christ consciousness portal, where it led you to a place where you get Christed because you're just doing that shit way too loudly for there not to be the potential energy of those who see that, and it feels like go for it.
But then it's like Obi-Wan Kenobi, It's like if you strike me down, I'll become more powerful than you can possibly imagine. It's like, so how far are you really willing to go? Are you willing to make your impact so much so that you'll let your death be the thing that makes your impact? Is that how much you mean it?
Now, to be truly Christing, I would say you would have to obtain the state of consciousness where you have such a trust in the transcendent that you are willing to die. It's not only are you willing to die, like as if it's a sacrifice, but that that's what you're walking into. Now that's intense.
I think just a connection to your own integrity and self is enough. Like when you really have a sense of honor and a sense of integrity, and you're aware of what giving that up would do to your life, like dying for your values it stops being that big of a deal.
I disagree with that, because I think that I totally agree that the first priority of a revolutionary is to survive.
I agree with that too, but maybe not.
You'd have to know that the act of getting yourself Christed would be okay. We're talking. I want to disengage from the Christedness and get back to
All I know is the only reason Christ is actually a big deal is because he died.
Okay, touche. Yeah, that wouldn't have been. Yep. Okay, you got it. So Lee asked, this is on what we're talking about. Okay. How do you two process your haters? I'll start this time. I have noticed a huge downward spike in the amount of online hatred that I would receive. At a certain point where I stopped identifying dualistically so much. And rarely expressing opinions that like choose a side in a serious way. And I enjoy the safety of having less haters and less extreme haters. But there is this quote, I forget who said it, if you ain't got no haters, you ain't popping.
Or you're not.
And I do wish to be popping. So the things that would get me popping would be not being so Mary Poppins, and sometimes
a little more John Popper.
Perhaps. Yeah.
I don't think that actually fits. It's just
Did you say John Popper?
Yeah, that's the only other word I could think of with pop in it.
John Popper was popping, both as a musician and got himself quite a few. Didn't he express that he's a big gun person and conservative? And
I don't know. He could wail on a harmonica, though. I know that much.
Yeah, I'm not sure, man. I want to make sure, because I would feel terrible if I just called John Popper a conservative. I don't like to call people that ever, but I remember something about him having a lot of guns. I voted for none of these clowns. I mean, John Popper says he's no fan of President Trump. Okay, great. I was a bleeding-hearted liberal until I got a job, and describes himself as a libertarian who is a Republican when pushed to be. And that's me, dude. I am a situationalist who votes Democrat when I am pushed to. That is so not my fucking team. They successfully are able to appear to me as the slightly lesser evil every 4 years.
I mean, I honestly think for the most part, for where we're at in our lives, philosophically and existentially, the founding fathers pretty much got a lot of it right. But the stuff that they got wrong was so wrong, so egregiously and horribly, terribly wrong, that we have to potentially restructure the entire country to deal with it. But I am absolutely unwilling to sacrifice the things that they got right. Because the things that they got right set precedent and changed the world forever and made it a more stable place.
Allowed for us to have a format to where maybe we can get to that brighter future. Chris, you kind of answered earlier, like with haters a little bit, but I'll give you, I'll dial in the question to you a little bit more. How does it make you feel when you see a comment on an otherwise like really constructive dialectic conversation that you've started on, say, Facebook, and then somebody just comes in and is like, I see people object to you for, being too, seeming too neutral or, dissociatively, like always on team, like, let's see this as a we, let's unify. Like, how do those comments make you feel? I just saw one the other day that was that you used the word we, and it seemed like your we included both the police and the protesters. And somebody comes in with like, hey man, you have to like see the Black experience in America more to, to understand that they are not on a we. How does that make you feel seeing something like that?
I see it coming. When I write stuff like this, I know what people are going to say. Like when I wrote that and I posted it, I was like, there's a hole in this that is likely to be exploited by somebody that is going to want to do that. I know it's coming. I know exactly what criticism I'm going to face for the most part. And I just expect it. It's just like, yeah, this is going to happen. And so when I feel, when it happens, I'm like, cool, there it is. Like I knew this was going to happen. But depending on how it gets done, I personally have a trigger about being misunderstood. I hate the feeling of being misunderstood. And so the thing that I'm training myself to do is to just stay happy and to know what's worth my time and what isn't. And somebody disagreeing with me on something and their point isn't really all that important, that doesn't matter to me. I don't have to deal with that. I have plenty of other things I can deal with. I have plenty of other things to put my attention on that'll make my world a better place and it'll make our world a better place. There's just other things to put my attention on. So if somebody has a problem with something I said, it's like, I don't really care.
Isn't it hard? It's hard for me not to respond to the negative comment first.
Yeah. Generally know, I'm more inclined to deal with a negative person than I am with a positive person. Somebody hating on me, I'm more comfortable with that than somebody telling me something really nice. If you tell me something fucked up, I'm more likely to respond to you than if you give me a really heartfelt compliment, because a compliment will make me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But that's a problem with me. And I need to train myself to respond more to the positive. And so that's what I'm trying to do. Is like, if you got a problem with what I got to say and it's like, cool, is your point valid? If your point's valid and you're talking about something that needs to be talked about, then great, I'll address it. But if your point isn't valid and you just completely misunderstood what the fuck I'm talking about, or you want to make it about something completely different, so that's not really my problem.
Word. So I think this is like one of the first times that we've like stayed in a pretty serious tone for an entire conversation, which I guess is like, bravo, we achieved it, but it's not how I want to be in the world. And I don't actually think it's the most helpful. So before we close here, it's like, Lee says, I have a sneaking suspicion it's going to get worse. Kathy says, de-escalation is precisely what the world needs right now. This is good, guys. So I feel de-escalation must be bipartisan if possible. So we have decided we wish to be de-escalators, but I am not spending 80% of my time all serious and shit. And it's not just because of like, I refuse to be serious. I think that without playfulness, it's hard to navigate to better places. And once we get to a too serious place with the amount and the intensity and of the violence in the streets, it's hard to be playful, because one of the most predictable reactions to me is people saying, Zach, if you're going to talk about that, you need to sound serious and sincere. And I can, but I find that when I take this tone, I say less helpful shit, and can sometimes somebody tunes in who's, having the day that they're having, then it's like, whoa, you're making me really scared. A nonsense man has fallen from grace and is now, seem to be on team, because some of us are super duper spiritual about this shit, where it's like, we are assisting the leaning in to the shadowy nightmare that we don't want by assuming this tenseness, you know.
So I have to go. I have to prep for
that's perfectly all right. So yeah, let's talk soon, perhaps this Wednesday.
Yeah, Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday. Let's do Wednesday.
Okay, Wednesday we will continue on this very thread with the seriousness. I would like to talk about the pragmatic or unhelpfulness of seriousness. All right, bye, Chris.
The world looks like in a week.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that was a conversation. I ended that on a serious note. So I'll say a silly thing now. Do I have anything silly to say? I'm about to go mushroom foraging in the woods, and every time I give up on finding mushrooms, that's when I find one. And I found like a 5-pound patch of chicken of the woods mushrooms, delicious, the other day. And I found it just as I was giving up and heading back home. So I'm going to go to the woods now with my mission being to not be feeling that need from hello from the Netherlands. I'm not going to try to pronounce your first name there, Van Dudecum. But hello. I'm going to go look for mushrooms in the woods, but I'm not going to be so emotionally invested in finding mushrooms. I'm going to be enjoying the search and also trying to give up in my heart, because that's usually when I find the mushrooms. And that's kind of an ironic. Is that irony? Is that paradox? Okay. Happy reality, everyone. Remember, you are dreaming. I love you all. Myself and Chris will return for another Nonsensus Spacecast conversation this Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is, I believe, 2:30 Pacific California time. Again, I say happy reality. Remember, you are dreaming. I love you all.